Beginnings of the Methodist religion in Hammonton. Worship and religious services were a vital component of daily life from the formative days of old Hammonton at Coffin's Mill to current times. This photo depicts the sawmill located at Coffin's Mill. It was this sawmill that initially provided employment for the men of the village. Note the location at red number 1 on the map at the foot of Coffin's Mill Pond, now Hammonton Lake. Evidence indicates, in 1814, the first church and school was a log cabin built by William Coffin and known as the Schoolhouse by the Lake. Religious meetings had their beginnings in Hammonton as early as the 1820s through the late 1890s. Numerous religious orders can all trace their origins to this time period, including the Methodists, Presbyterians, Baptists, Episcopalians, Catholics, Universalists, Unitarian Society, Spiritualists, and the First Church of Christ. The earliest religious meetings took place in the private homes of townspeople living around the lake. These meetings were not always consistent in format, frequency, or clergy. However, organized gatherings can be attributed to the Methodists as early as 1827. Records indicate Methodist services were held by a traveling minister in Charlotte Speakman's General Store on Pleasant Mills Road. Refer again to the map of Coffin's Mill and its proximity to Speakman's General Store, red number 2. Later, around 1857, a cabin in the woods about 1 mile west of Coffin's Mill and Hammonton Lake was the home of a primitive combined school and church. The location is identified as red number 3. Unfortunately, no structural remains of the small church have ever been identified. However, multiple grave sites, now surrounded by only an iron fence, mark the believed location of a cemetery, church, and school. In 1858, Methodist services were held in a shanty on Bellevue Avenue. A traveling preacher conducted services every 2 weeks, as well as providing services in nearby Waterford and Winslow. By 1861, parishioners moved to a nearby general store owned by George Elvins, one of the early fathers of Hammonton. The store was located at the intersection of Main Road, now Whitehorse Pike, and Bellevue Avenue, red number 4. A new and permanent pastor was paid $100 per year, and the congregation numbered 120. Finally, in 1866, the First Methodist Church, a 2-story building, opened its doors on Bellevue Avenue. Number 5 identifies the location of this church. A sketch of the original church is shown. The Methodist Church became well known for providing Sunday school for the children of the parish. Sunday school classes, first fostered by the Methodists, became a valued addition to their religious teachings, and they were later joined by the Presbyterians in combined Sunday school classes. Even then, however, it was recognized that the center of town was developing further south towards the Camden Atlantic Railroad. Funds were raised to move the existing church. However, the idea later abandoned as impractical. The cornerstone of a new church was laid in 1891, red number 6, using the timbers of the previously dismantled church. Between 1890 and 1893, the congregation had doubled in size. In 1903, a special reopening of the Methodist Church was held and celebrated by a burning of the mortgage. As can be seen in the circa 1920s photo, the church's architecture boasted a very tall steeple and bell tower. Unfortunately, the steeple was later damaged. It was first shortened, then removed in 1936. The steeple now appears as shown. but the original bell still tolls on Sundays in the bell tower and is the only actual church bell heard in Hammonton today. Thank you for your attention.